Day stood alone on the observation deck, his eyes fixed on the 5 tall towers of Sunspire Academy. The towers shone in the light of the setting sun. Each tower was made of a clear material that looked like glass but was stronger than steel. As the sun's rays hit them, they glowed in different colors: blue, green, red, purple, and gold. Day put his hand against the clear wall that kept the air inside. Outside was the thin atmosphere of Nexus Station, the giant space platform that housed the most famous school in the galaxy. From here, he could see the curve of the artificial world they lived on. Far below, tiny lights showed where people walked and ships landed. 3 days, he said to himself. Just 3 days left. The convergence trials were coming. This yearly contest would decide if humans could stay at the Academy. For the past 4 years, humans had been trying to prove they belonged here among the stars. 4 years of being looked down on, of hearing whispers that humans were too simple, too weak, too new to space travel to deserve a place here. Day's reflection stared back at him from the glass. His dark eyes looked tired. His black hair needed a cut. The blue uniform of the human team hung a little loose. He had lost weight from too much training and too little sleep. "Thought I'd find you here," said a voice behind him. Day turned to see Subin walking toward him. She was shorter than him but moved with quiet confidence. Her short black hair was pulled back from her face, and she carried a small computer pad in her hand. As the team's analyst, Subin always had data to share. "Chancellor Baroon just made the announcement public," she said, holding up her pad so Day could see. "It's official now." Day took the pad and read the message glowing on its surface. The words made his stomach feel cold. To the human delegation of Sunspire Academy. The Oversight Committee has determined that your species' continued presence at this institution must be justified by exceptional performance in this year's convergence trials. Failure to place among the top 3 teams will result in the permanent removal of human representation from Sunspire Academy and a 50-year prohibition on reapplication. Chancellor Vor Baroon, 17th seat of the Galactic Education Council. "He can't do this," Day said, but his voice lacked conviction. He knew the Chancellor could do exactly this. Humans were still new to the Galactic Confederation. They had no real power here. "It gets worse," Subin said. She touched the pad, and it showed a new image, a medical report. "Jin's injury isn't healing, right? The doctors say he can't compete." Day closed his eyes for a moment. Jin was their best player in zero-gravity challenges. Without him, their chances dropped even lower. "The other teams?" he asked. "They know about the ultimatum. The Zentari have already filed 3 formal complaints about human participation. They say we're too unpredictable, too dangerous." Subin pulled up another screen, this one showing footage from the practice hall. 3 aliens stood together, talking in low voices. One was tall and thin, with skin that looked like blue leaves. Another had forearms and eyes that blinked sideways. The third floated slightly above the ground, its body wrapped in what looked like shifting smoke. "They've formed an alliance," Subin said. "All 3 teams working together. Against us." "They're scared," Day realized. Subin nodded. Last month, Tay beat the Zentari record in adaptable mathematics. 2 weeks ago, Hyun outperformed the Mokhthar in engineering design. "We're learning too fast. They think we're a threat." Day looked back at the glowing towers. When humans first arrived at Sunspire Academy, they had been given the smallest rooms in the lowest levels. They had to share labs with other species, always the last to use the equipment. Their questions in class were answered last, if at all. But slowly, things had changed. Humans didn't have 4 brains like the Mokhthar or skin that could absorb energy like the Zentari. They couldn't read electromagnetic fields like the Vossi, but they kept trying new approaches when the old ones failed. They shared knowledge freely among themselves. They helped each other, and they started to win. "Show me our team's latest standings," Day said. Subin touched her pad again. A list appeared, showing scores in different categories. Zero-gravity navigation. 4th place, Jin. Multidimensional mathematics, 2nd place, Tay. Adaptive engineering, 3rd place, Hyun. Strategic analysis, Third place, Subin. Team leadership. Fifth place, Day. Fifth place, Day said quietly. I'm letting everyone down. That's not true, Subin said firmly. The scoring system is biased against human thinking. The Mokhtar leader has 4 brains working at once. The Zentari can communicate with their whole team without speaking. Of course they score higher. Day didn't feel better. Without Jin, we can't place in zero gravity. Without a top 3 finish overall, humans lose their place here. He looked at Subin. For 50 years. Then we find another way, she said. Her eyes were bright with determination. That's what humans do, right? We adapt. The door to the observation deck slid open. Tay walked in, her steps quick and purposeful. She was the youngest on their team, only 19 Earth years old. Her long black hair was tied back in a simple style and her uniform was perfectly neat. Emergency team meeting, she said. I've been analyzing the other team's practice sessions. I found something. What kind of something? Day asked. A weakness. Tay's serious face broke into a small smile, but not theirs. Ours. And if we fix it, it might give us an edge they can't match. Day looked at Subin, who shrugged. Worth a shot, she said. As they walked toward the door, Day took one last look at the 5 towers of Sunspire Academy. For 300 years, humans had looked at the stars and dreamed of joining the galactic community. They had built faster ships, learned alien languages, and finally earned a small place at the academy, and now in 3 days it could all be lost. On the horizon, the twin moons of the Nexus system rose above the curved edge of the station. Their light made the towers shine even brighter. No, Day said to himself, we're not losing our place here. Subin looked back at him. Coming? Day nodded. Let's go show them what humans can do when backed into a corner. As they left the observation deck, the lights automatically dimmed behind them. In the darkness, the view of the academy remained. 5 towers standing tall against the star-filled sky, waiting to see if humans would still walk their halls when the next cycle began. The human team's private lab was smaller than those of the other species. The walls were plain white, not decorated with the awards and honors that filled the Zentari or Mokhtar spaces. But it was clean and well-organized, with 5 workstations, arranged in a circle around a central display table. Tay stood by the display, her fingers moving through the air above it. The table projected light upward, forming shapes that changed as she moved her hands. Unlike the fancy neural interfaces the other species used, humans still had to use their hands to control the academy's systems. Everyone here? She asked without looking up. Day did a quick head count. Subin stood beside him, her datapad ready to take notes. Hyun sat at his station, dark circles under his eyes showing how little he had slept while working on their equipment. And in the corner, Jin lay, in a medical pod that monitored his vital signs. The clear top of the pod was open so he could join the meeting, but the bandages around his chest and left arm showed why he couldn't compete. We're all here, Day confirmed. What did you find, Tay? Tay nodded and expanded the display. Above the table, light formed into shapes that showed recordings of the other teams during practice sessions. The Zentari moved with fluid grace, their leaf-like skin catching the light. The Mokhtar worked in perfect coordination, their 4 arms manipulating complex tools without hesitation. The Vosi floated through obstacles that would block a human, their smoke-like bodies reshaping as needed. I've been watching these recordings for days, Tay said, looking for weaknesses, patterns, anything we could use, but I was looking in the wrong place. What do you mean? Subin asked. I was looking at what they can do, Tay explained. I should have been looking at what they can't do. She touched a control, and the display changed to show the Zentari team during a power failure 2 months ago. Without full light in the practice hall, their movements became slower, less certain. The Zentari use their skin to absorb energy, Tay said. In low light, they struggle. Another image appeared showing a Mokhtar student confused by a simple puzzle. The Mokhtar use their 4 brains to think about problems from different angles at once, Tay continued. But when a problem has only one perspective, they get confused by their own competing thoughts. A third recording showed a Vossi student unable to pass through an electrified gate. The Vossi sense electromagnetic fields and can change their shape, but strong fields disrupt their ability to hold their form, Tay said. Jin raised his hand slightly from his medical pod. We already know their weaknesses, he said, his voice weak. But we can't control the conditions of the trials. That's not the point, Tay said. She looked at each of them in turn. What do all these advanced species have in common? They rely heavily on their special abilities. When those abilities are compromised, they struggle. Subin's eyes widened as she understood. And humans don't have any special abilities compared to them. Exactly, Tay said, her voice rising with excitement. That's our advantage. We've never had special abilities, so we've always had to find workarounds. We jury-rig solutions, we think laterally. Hyun, who had been quiet until now, leaned forward. But how does that help us in the trials? Tay smiled. The trials test adaptability above all else. The course changes every 15 minutes, environmental conditions shift. What if we train specifically for losing advantages rather than using them? The room went quiet as everyone thought about this idea. Show me how, Day said finally. Tay moved her hands, and the display changed to show their training equipment. We reconfigure our simulators to randomly disable certain capabilities during practice. Force ourselves to adapt on the fly. Hyun got up from his seat and joined Tay at the display. I could modify our gear to shut down at random intervals, he said, his fingers moving through the light to adjust the designs. Cut visual input, alter gravity simulation, introduce impossible scenarios. That's actually brilliant, Subin said. She was already typing notes into her pad. The other teams trained to maximize their natural advantages. We train to function when we lose whatever advantages we have. Jin tried to sit up in his pod but winced in pain. It's risky, he said. The trials start in less than 3 days. That's not much time to master a completely new training approach. Day walked slowly around the display, studying the modified designs from all angles. He thought about how much was riding on their performance, not just their own futures, but the future of all humans in the Galactic Confederation. It's risky, he agreed. But staying the course is even riskier. We know we can't beat them at their own game. He looked at each member of his team. Tay, brilliant and determined. Subin, methodical and insightful. Hyun, creative and tireless. Jin, injured but still fighting to contribute. Let's do it, he decided. We have 2 days to master losing our advantages before we ever had them. Hyun didn't waste any time. He moved to his workstation and began reconfiguring their training equipment. I'll need help with the physical modifications, he said. I'll help, Subin offered, joining him. Tay was already programming new simulation scenarios. I'll focus on the mental challenges, she said. Changing the rules mid-simulation, introducing false data, that sort of thing. Jin looked at Day. What about you? What will you do? Day took a deep breath. I'm going to tell Chancellor Barun that we accept his challenge. The room went quiet again. Are you sure? Subin asked. Once you do that, there's no backing down. We're not backing down anyway, Day said, and I want him to know that. As the others returned to their tasks, Day paused at the door. Jin, he said, you're still part of this team. We need your mind even if we can't have your body in the competition. Jin nodded. I'll coordinate from here, monitor everyone's progress, look for patterns in how we adapt. Day left the lab, walking through the quiet hallways of the academy. Most students were already in bed, resting for tomorrow's practice, but light still shone from the labs of the other teams. They were working hard too. Outside Chancellor Barron's office, Day straightened his uniform and smoothed back his hair. Then he pressed the notification panel beside the door. A voice came from inside. Enter. The door slid open silently. Chancellor Barron sat behind a large desk made of some alien material that seemed to shift colors as Day approached. The Chancellor himself was imposing, tall with gray skin that looked like stone and eyes that glowed with a soft purple light. Student Day, he said. It is quite late for a meeting. Day stood straight, hands at his sides. "I've come to formally acknowledge your ultimatum, Chancellor." "It is not an ultimatum," Barun said smoothly. "It is simply a reasonable requirement for continued participation." "Then we accept your reasonable requirement," Day said, keeping his voice level. "The human team will place in the top 3, or we will leave Sunspire Academy. The Chancellor's are." Stone-like face showed no emotion, but his eyes glowed a bit brighter. "Bold words, especially given your team's current standing." "Humans have been told we don't belong among the stars for most of our history," Day said. "We proved those people wrong. We'll prove you wrong, too." He turned to leave, then stopped at the door. "One question, Chancellor. Why now? Why set this challenge when we've been improving consistently?" Chancellor Barun was silent for a moment. "Because, Student Day," he finally said, "some on the council believe that improvement without proper foundation is dangerous. Like a tower built on sand, it will eventually collapse, perhaps catastrophically." Day thought about this. Or perhaps they're afraid that humans might eventually build something better than a tower. He left before the Chancellor could respond, the door sliding shut behind him. As he walked back to the human lab, Day's steps felt lighter. The challenge was enormous. The odds were against them. But for the first time since reading the ultimatum, he felt a spark of hope. Humans had been adapting and overcoming for their entire history. It was time to show the galaxy what that really meant. The human training room was filled with the sounds of effort and frustration. With just 24 hours until the trials, the team had been pushing themselves non-stop for nearly 2 days. Empty food containers were piled in one corner. Bottles of water and energy drinks stood in various states of emptiness around the room. Day watched as Subin attempted to navigate a zero-gravity maze. She was halfway through when Hyun, monitoring the systems, pressed a button. Suddenly, Subin's visual feed cut out. The special glasses she wore went dark. "No fair!" she shouted, but continued moving. Her hands reached out, feeling the walls of the maze. She was doing well until Hyun pressed another button. This time the maze itself shifted, changing its pattern. Unable to see and now facing a new layout, Subin crashed into a wall. The system buzzed loudly, signaling failure. She pulled off the glasses and threw them to the floor. "This is impossible," she shouted, tears of frustration streaming down her face. "How am I supposed to navigate when I can't see and the maze keeps changing?" "That's the point," Day said quietly. "We need to be ready for anything." Across the room, Tay was working on a multi-dimensional math problem. Just as she neared the solution, Hyun activated another system change. The numbers on her screen began to shift, following a new mathematical rule. Tay's hands froze above the keyboard. She stared at the screen, then shook her head. "I can't keep starting over," she said, her voice flat with exhaustion. Her normally perfect hair had come loose from its tie, and dark circles had formed under her eyes. Hyun wasn't in much better shape. He had been up for nearly 40 hours straight, modifying their equipment and running the simulations. His hands shook slightly as he adjusted the settings. "Again," Day said, trying to keep his voice firm but encouraging. "Tay, try a different approach. Don't solve for the answer directly. Look for the pattern of how things change." Tay nodded wearily and turned back to her screen. "Subin, put the glasses back on. This time, create a mental map of the maze before your vision cuts out. Then use touch to confirm your position as you move." Subin picked up the glasses, wiping her eyes. "I'll try," she said, though she didn't sound convinced. From his medical pod in the corner, Jin watched with growing concern. The monitor showed his own health improving, but his teammates were breaking down. "Day," he called out. "They need a break. You all do." Day shook his head. "There's no time." "There won't be a team left if you keep this up," Jin argued. "Look at them." Day looked around the room. Subin's shoulders were slumped in defeat. Tay's hands were trembling above her keyboard. Hyun could barely keep his eyes open. 10 minutes, Day conceded. "Everyone take 10 minutes. Get some water. Splash your faces. Then we continue." As the others moved away from their stations, Jin motioned for Day to come closer to his pod. This isn't working, Jin said in a low voice. We're just breaking ourselves before the competition even starts. We don't have a choice, Day replied. You saw the data. The other teams are working together against us. We have to be better. Better, yes, but not broken. Jin pointed to a small screen next to his pod, which showed Subin sitting on the Hao floor, her head in her hands. Look at her. Yesterday she could run the zero-gravity maze in record time. Now she can't even finish it. Dave felt a knot form in his stomach. Had he pushed them too far? Was he jeopardizing not just their performance, but their well-being? The communication hub in the center of the room suddenly lit up. An incoming message appeared on the screen. It was a video feed showing the other teams practicing. The Zentari moved in perfect harmony, their leaf-like skin reflecting the light as they completed complex maneuvers. The Mokhtar worked together, each member contributing without hesitation. The Vosi flowed through difficult obstacles as if they weren't there. Hyun walked back to his station, his water bottle only half empty. They look unbeatable, he said, softly. Maybe the aliens are right, he added, not meeting anyone's eyes. Maybe we don't belong here. The room fell silent. The only sound was the quiet beeping of Jin's medical monitors. Day stared at the screen, doubt filling his mind. Had Chancellor Barun been right? Was human progress built on sand, ready to collapse under real pressure? He thought about all the people back on Earth who were counting on them. For centuries, humans had looked up at the stars, dreaming of joining the greater galactic community. Now their future at the Academy, and perhaps in the Confederation itself, rested on how well 5 exhausted students perform tomorrow. I think we should stop for today, Tay said suddenly, breaking the silence. Get some rest. Go into the trials with clear minds. Day was about to argue when he noticed something on Tay's screen. Wait, he said, walking over to her station. What's that pattern? Tay followed his gaze. On her screen was a visualization of their performance data from the past 2 days. It showed a series of peaks and valleys, their successes and failures during training. It's just our progress chart, she said. Or lack of progress. No, look closer, Day insisted. There's a pattern here. As they both studied the screen, Tay's eyes widened. You're right, she said, her voice gaining strength. We're not failing randomly. After each failure, our next attempt shows improvement, but in a different area than where we failed. She touched the screen, highlighting a section. See? When Subin failed the maze because of vision loss, her next attempt with gravity change was better than before. When I failed at the math problem with changing rules, my next spatial recognition test improved. We're learning, Day realized. Just not in the way we expected. Subin joined them at the screen. What do you mean? I think our brains are making connections between different types of challenges, Tay explained. Instead of getting better at one specific task, we're getting better at adapting in general. Hyun walked over too, looking more alert now. So the failing is actually helping us? That doesn't make sense. It does if you think about it, Jin called from his pod. Humans have always learned from failure. It's how we evolved, how we survived. We try, we fail, we adapt, we try again. Day studied the data more carefully. Tay, can you show our overall adaptability score? Not individual task performance, but how quickly we recover after a change. Tay's fingers moved across the screen. A new graph appeared, showing a steady upward trend despite the failing individual scores. We're not training to be perfect at any one thing, Day said slowly. We're training to recover quickly when things go wrong. The team gathered around the screen, looking at the data with new eyes. So the training is working, Subin said. Just not how we thought it would. Hyun nodded, a small smile forming on his tired face. That's kind of perfect, isn't it? Even our training method is adapting. For the first time in days, the mood in the room lifted. They weren't failing. They were learning a new way to succeed. Okay, new plan, Day said. 1 more hour of focused practice, then everyone gets 8 hours of rest. Tomorrow before the trials, we'll do a light warm-up session to keep our minds flexible. What about the other teams? Subin asked, looking at the screen where the aliens still moved in perfect practiced harmony. They're training to execute perfectly when everything goes as expected, Day said. We're training to recover when nothing goes as expected. He smiled at his team. Which approach do you think will work better in a trial designed to test adaptability? The human team looked at one another, and for the first time since the ultimatum, they felt ready to face the challenge ahead. As they returned to their stations with renewed purpose, Jin watched from his pod with pride. Humans had always been known for their resilience. Now this small team was about to show the galaxy just how powerful that quality could be. The night before the convergence trials, the human quarters buzzed with nervous energy and quiet determination. After a full day of rest and a light practice session, the team gathered in their common area for final preparations. Jin's medical pod had been wheeled from his room into the center of the space. Against the doctor's advice, he had insisted on being present for the team's final strategy meeting. The doctor said, "I need another 2 days of rest," he told Day, adjusting his position in the pod. "But I'm not missing this. Even if I can't compete, I can still help from the sidelines." Day nodded, grateful for Jin's presence. The team felt complete with him here, even if he couldn't join them in the arena tomorrow. Subin stood by the main display, showing a holographic model of the competition arena. The image showed a massive, winding space filled with obstacles, challenges, and hidden tests. "They've released the basic layout," she said, zooming in on different sections. "But remember, it's designed to change configuration every 15 minutes. Tay walked around the hologram, studying it from all angles. "It's even harder than last year," she noted. She pointed to several sections that glowed red in the display. "These are environmental hazards. They weren't in previous trials. And look at this," Hyun added. He touched the display, highlighting certain areas in yellow. "These sections have been specially designed to challenge human physiology. Gravity wells that match Earth's pull exactly, making it harder for us but easier for the lighter Vasi. Oxygen-rich atmospheres that slow our thinking but boost Zentari photosynthesis. They're not even trying to hide the bias," Subin said, frowning. "It doesn't matter," Day replied. "We're not training to succeed under perfect conditions. We're training to adapt when everything goes wrong." Jin touched a control on his pod, and his own screen lit up. "I've been reviewing our data from the past 3 days," he said. "Our adaptability scores are now higher than any team in Academy history, but our individual skill scores are still lower than the other teams," Tay pointed out. "True," Jin agreed. "But the convergence trials don't just test individual skills. They test how well a team works together under changing conditions." Day moved to the center of the room. "Let's go over our strategy one more time," he said. "Tay, you'll take point on the mathematical and pattern recognition challenges." Tay nodded, her face serious. "I've memorized 17 different approaches to multidimensional problems. If one doesn't work, I'll switch to another. Subin, you're our eyes and coordination specialist. You'll track the arena changes and guide the team through the physical challenges." Subin gave a short bow. "I've mapped likely transformation patterns based on previous years. I'll keep us one step ahead of the shifts. Hyun, you're on equipment and environmental adaptation. When our gear fails, and it will fail, you make it work again." Hyun held up a small toolkit he had assembled. "I've prepared for 23 different types of failures, plus some general tools for whatever I didn't think of." "And Jin," Day said, turning to the medical pod, "you'll be our remote analyst. From the observation deck, you'll have a view of the whole arena that we won't have from inside." Jin tapped his communication device. "I'll be watching everything. The system will let me send data bursts to your tablets during the allowed communication windows." Dee looked at each member of his team. They had come so far in just a few days. From separate individuals to a unified force. From fearing failure to embracing it as a learning tool. "One more thing," he said. "I received a message from Earth today." The room went quiet. News from home was rare and precious. "What did it say?" Subin asked. Day pulled out his personal tablet and read the message. "The United Earth Council wishes to inform the human delegation at Sunspire Academy that tomorrow's convergence trials will be broadcast to all Earth territories. An estimated 10 billion people will be watching your performance. The future of human participation in galactic education rests on your shoulders. Make humanity proud. The silence in the room grew heavier. 10 billion people, Hyun whispered. The largest audience for any event in human history. Jin smiled weakly from his pod. No pressure, right? The team shared a brief, nervous laugh. They're counting on us, Tae said quietly. Yes, they are, Tae agreed. But remember why we're here. Not just to prove ourselves to other species, but to learn and grow. To show what humans can contribute to the galactic community. Subin looked back at the holographic arena. Do you think we can really do this? Place in the top 3? Day was about to answer when a deafening alarm suddenly blared throughout the academy. The lights in their quarters shifted from soft white to flashing red. What's happening? Tae asked, covering her ears against the noise. Hyun rushed to the window. Outside, they could see figures moving quickly through the normally quiet evening pathways. Security drones flew in formation toward the central tower. The academy's communication system activated. A calm voice speaking over the alarm. Attention all students and faculty. This is not a drill. Academy security has detected multiple unauthorized entries. All teams report to your designated safe areas immediately. Repeat, this is not a drill. The alarm continued to blare as the team looked at each other in confusion. A security breach now? Subin said. That's never happened before. Day moved quickly to the door, checking the security panel. The system says we should stay here. Our quarters are in secure lockdown. Jin's medical pod began to beep with an incoming message. It's from Chancellor Baroon's office, he said, tapping to accept it. The main display changed from the arena hologram to show the Chancellor's stone-like face. His purple eyes glowed brighter than usual, showing what might be concern. Human delegation, he said, his voice tense but controlled. We have a situation. An unknown species has bypassed our defenses and infiltrated the academy. They have disabled most of our automated security systems. What about the trials? Day asked. Will they be postponed? The Chancellor's expression hardened. That is your concern at this moment? The academy is under attack. I'm sorry, Day said quickly. What can we do to help? Stay in your quarters, Chancellor Baroon ordered. Our security forces will handle this threat. The connection cut off abruptly. That didn't sound good, Hyun said, still looking out the window. Those aren't just security drones out there now, those are combat units. The lights in their quarters flickered, then stabilized. The main power must be affected. Jin's medical pod made a soft beeping sound as it switched to emergency power. The network is going down, he reported, looking at his screens. Communications between different parts of the academy are being cut off. What does it mean? Subin asked. Day looked at his team, then at the flashing red lights. The truth hit him suddenly with perfect clarity. It means, he said slowly, that the real trial has just begun, and it's not the one we've been preparing. 4. Tae's eyes widened as she understood. You think this is part of the test? No, Day said, shaking his head. I think this is real. But it's exactly what we've been training for. Adapting when everything goes wrong. He moved to the center of the room, his mind already forming a plan. Hyun, check our equipment, we might need it. Subin, see if you can access the security feeds, find out what we're dealing with. Tae, work with Jin to establish a communication method that doesn't rely on the Academy's systems. As his team moved into action, Day looked out at the chaos, developing outside their window. After all their specialized training, after all their preparation for the carefully designed trials, they now faced something completely unexpected. And somehow, that made him smile. Because unexpected challenges were exactly what humans did best. Dawn broke over a Sunspire academy in chaos. Through the windows of the human quarters, Day could see the first light of the system's star touching the tops of the 5 towers. On a normal day, the towers would shine with beautiful colors. Today, they were dark and silent. Status report, Day said, turning from the window. Hyun looked up from the pile of equipment he had been modifying. I've adapted our training gear for emergency use. Our tablets can now operate off the academy grid and connect directly to each other. The security feeds are mostly down, Subin reported, but I captured some images before they cut out. She showed her tablet to the others. On the screen were strange figures moving through the academy halls. They wore full-body suits that seemed to absorb light, making them hard to see clearly. Any idea who they are? Day asked. None, Subin said. No match in the academy database of known species. Tae and Jin had been working together on communications. We found a way to send messages using an old frequency band, Tae said. The academy stopped using it years ago, but the hardware still exists in the walls. Jin's medical pod was now operating on its own power system. I've made contact with a few other students, he said. The Zentari team is trapped in their lab. The Mokhtar are hiding in the hydroponics section. The Vasi are scattered throughout the living quarters. What about the faculty and security forces? Dai asked. No contact, Jin said grimly. From what I can piece together, the attackers took out the central command first. Day considered their options. The academy was under attack by an unknown force. Communications were limited, the security systems were down, and the rest of the student body seemed frozen by indecision and fear. This is exactly what we've been training for, he said, gathering his team. Adapting when everything goes wrong. What's the plan? Subin asked. First, we need to understand what the attackers want, Day said. Then we need to reconnect the different parts of the academy. Finally, we need to help retake control of the central systems. That's a lot for just 4 people, Hyun pointed out. 5, Jin corrected. I may be stuck in this pod, but I can still help. Day smiled at his injured friend. 5 then, and we won't be alone once we connect with the other teams. They quickly divided tasks. Jin would stay in their quarters, coordinating communications and gathering intelligence. Tai would work on restoring power to key systems. Hyun would create tools and devices to help them navigate safely. Subin would map the attackers' movements and find safe routes. And Day would make contact with the other teams, bringing them into the plan. Using the special frequencies Tae had discovered, Jin was able to send messages to the scattered students. Most were too afraid to respond, but a few, including the leaders of the Zentari, Mokhtar, and Vasi teams, were willing to listen. Why should we follow a human plan? Asked the Zentari leader when Day finally established direct communication. Your species is the least advanced among us. Because, right now adaptation is more valuable than advancement, Day replied, and humans are very good at adapting. Slowly, reluctantly, the other teams agreed to coordinate their efforts. With Jin guiding them from his central position, they began to reclaim the academy section by section. At first, they faced many setbacks. The Zentari team struggled when the attackers cut the lights, reducing the energy they could absorb through their skin. The Mokhtar became confused when faced with situations that changed too quickly for their 4 brains to reach consensus. The Vasi couldn't pass through areas where the invaders had set up electromagnetic barriers. Each time, the human team found a workaround. When their tablets failed, they used hand signals. When a route was blocked, they found another way. When a tool broke, they made a new one from whatever materials were available. They're learning from us, Subin said with surprise as she watched the Zentari students improvise light sources from broken equipment. And we're learning from them, Hyun replied as he incorporated a Mokhtar technique into his latest device. 4 hours into their counterattack, they made a crucial discovery. Tae had been analyzing the patterns of the Academy's power failures when she noticed something important. They're not trying to destroy the Academy, she told Day through their communication link. They're trying to access the central knowledge banks. The Academy's database? Day asked. Why? It contains the collective scientific knowledge of the Galactic Confederation, Jin's voice added. Centuries of research, technology, and cultural information. Where would they access it from? Day asked. The Chancellor's office, Jin said. It has a direct connection to the main servers. Day looked at the map Subin had created. The Chancellor's Office was in the central tower, the most heavily guarded area now controlled by the attackers. We need to get there, he decided. All teams converge on central tower access points. As they moved through the academy, Day was surprised to find more students joining them. Word had spread about the human-led resistance. Species that had once looked down on humans now followed their lead, adapting quickly to changing circumstances. When they reached the central tower, they found it heavily guarded. The attackers had set up defenses that would be difficult to breach directly. We need a distraction, Day said to the gathered students. The Zentari team leader stepped forward. We will provide it, she said. Your strategy has merit, human. While the Zentari created a diversion on the lower levels, drawing away many of the guards, the human team led a small group toward the Chancellor's office on the upper level. They were almost there when they encountered a final obstacle, a locking mechanism unlike anything they had seen before. I can't bypass it, Hyun said after examining the door. The technology is beyond me. Day looked at the gathered students, humans, Zentari, Mokhtar, Fosi, all working together now. We don't need to bypass it, he said. We need to combine our knowledge. With the Mokhtar's multi-brain approach to the problem, the Vasi's sense of electromagnetic fields, the Zentari's understanding of energy flow, and human adaptability, they created a solution no single species could have devised, alone. The door slid open to reveal Chancellor Baroon held captive by two of the light-absorbing invaders. A third figure stood at the Chancellor's private terminal downloading data. Instead of charging in, Day signaled for everyone to wait. This isn't about fighting, he whispered. It's about outsmarting them, using what they had learned about the Academy's systems. Tai implemented a plan that made the attackers think a security team was approaching from multiple directions. As they prepared to defend themselves, the students entered from an unexpected angle. In the confusion that followed, they managed to free Chancellor Baroon and secure the terminal. Well done, students, the Chancellor said, his stone face showing what might have been a smile. Especially you, human delegation. As Academy security finally arrived to take control, the leader of the Zentari team approached Day. We believed your species was dangerous because you lack specialization, HFY said. Now we understand. Your adaptability itself is your specialization. Chancellor Baroon surveyed his damaged academy. The convergence trials have existed for 3,000 years, he said, testing which species can best contribute to our civilization. Never before has a real crisis served as the test. He turned to the human team. There will be no formal competition this year. Your actions today have rendered it unnecessary. Later, as news of their success was transmitted to Earth, the human team gathered in their quarters. They were exhausted but triumphant. Do you think they planned this? Jin asked from his pod. Made the whole attack up as a test? Does it matter? Day replied. Either way, we proved ourselves. Use it or lose it, Subin said, repeating the phrase that had guided their training. That's the human way, isn't it? We never had perfect abilities to rely on, so we learned to use whatever we had or adapt when we lost it. Hyun nodded. And now the whole academy knows what humans bring to the table. In the great hall of Sunspire Academy, a ceremony was held the next day. For the first time, the Earth flag was raised alongside the permanent members of the Galactic Confederation. The age of human exclusion was over. As Day watched the blue and white flag of Earth rise among the alien symbols, he thought about the journey that had brought them here. Humans had always been the underdogs, the species with no special gifts. But perhaps their greatest gift was the ability to keep going when everything went wrong, to adapt when their tools failed, to find new ways when old paths were blocked. In a galaxy of specialists, there was now a place for the adaptable generalist from Earth. And they had earned it, not despite their human limitations, but because of how they overcame them.